JT, we are back. It's been a minute. I've been in Ireland. You've been coaching football. We got stuff going on. What is the story, man? What's going on with you?
Looks like you guys you had an awesome trip, so that's sweet. Never been to Ireland, but from the people I know that have gone, they absolutely love it. So that's awesome for you. Yeah, things have been wild, man. A couple dynasty leagues that looked like they were going to shut down, and we had to race. I've been doing a ton of work to try to pick up a couple teams to take over some orphan teams, and so I am literally in my last dynasty rookie draft right now. This morning, trying to finish it up so we can run a waiver wire run before the season starts on Thursday. So between that and doing all my home draft leagues that I've been in for, anywhere from 5 to 20 years over this weekend and the weekend before, just been kind of hammering out all those redraft leagues and trying to get everything set, get the lineup set, this week, trying to get them all in today and look and see where I need, because I got a ton of leagues that got waivers running either tonight or tomorrow before the first game on Thursday. So we'll take a look at that today in the show and talk about some guys you should be looking to pick up in your waiver wire, off the waiver wire in your leagues as well.
Absolutely. I got one draft tonight that's online with buddies from back home. 2 guys are on vacation right now, so they're going to do it while on their vacation, which if I did that, my wife would absolutely kill me. So I didn't. We didn't even look at my phone in Ireland. And then I got one tomorrow night with Rob Wozniak and Andy Behrens and Pat Fitzmaurice and all those guys. So all the local Chicago guys. So I can't wait for that. Those are always fun too. And we got our hockey draft tomorrow night too.
Yep,
so,
I got an auction draft that's going on at the same time, so I'm gonna have to keep an eye on both. So my last auction draft, I just did one last night, and I did a snake draft last night. My last auction draft, which John, it can be real wild. You never know how those ones are going to turn out. So got that one, and then our around the ice here on Fantasy Friends, we're doing our home hockey league. We've switched from a keeper league to a dynasty league, so we're going to start drafting here, slow draft. Some of us are trying to get together for about the first 5 or 6 rounds, try to knock out as much as we can tomorrow night, and then we'll slow draft online till the season gets here. So going to be interesting, whole new start with the dynasty going in that league. So
it was either go to Muhammad for a hockey draft or go up north of Chicago to see all the fantasy football guys.
We will miss you, John, but we know you're there in heart and spirit.
So, all right, very good. So, yeah, like JT had mentioned before, what we're going to do is we're going to go team by team real quick, couple of 30 seconds per team, talk about you guys just drafted last weekend. You picked all your players, you got your studs, but who's the guys that you need to pick up or be ready for week 1 waiver wires when they make a splash, when somebody gets hurt, who's the next go-to guy, who should have been picked that wasn't picked on every team. These are things we're going to cover right now, team by team. We'll start with the AFC East. We'll go with the Buffalo Bills. JT, there's no question at quarterback. Who's quarterback there? We know it's Josh Allen. Running backs, James Cook's got how much is Ray Davis going to factor in his offense?
I love Ray Davis. I've been talking about him all offseason. I liked him going into the draft. I loved the landing spot in Buffalo. He looked good in the preseason when he got an opportunity. He got there, ran strong, hard. He is now the clear-cut backup to James Cook, and I don't think he's a total backup. I think he's going to get some touches. He's better around the goal line than James Cook. He's a better ball handler. He does not put the ball on the ground, which is a James Cook problem. I think Ray Davis is a guy. If you have James Cook, I want Ray Davis for sure. I want to make sure I have him handcuffed. But even if you don't, if you're a team where you missed out on running back and you're like, man, I need to take some swings on some guys that might get some PT in these bye weeks, or I might need a fill in if there's an injury. Ray Davis is my guy. He's the guy I want to add to my roster. And we got new mailman Chris says, "Woo, JT put me on Ray Davis." That's right. That's right, Chris. I did. I love Ray Davis. So if he did not get taken to your league, which he did in a lot of them, he did in a few of mine just because I talked about him constantly. So I took him or somebody sniped him from me. He's a guy I definitely want to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, I tried trading Chris Joel Smith for the Ray Davis. Right when he was kind of questioning, why did I draft Ray Davis? And he's like, well, JT told me, he's a good dude. I'm like, yeah, JT was right. I'm just trying to get him from you. So, yeah, thanks for
my rookie draft. I had 3 third-round picks in this last rookie draft I'm in, and I thought for sure I'm getting Ray Davis, and I got sniped. First pick of the 3rd round didn't get to me. I was pissed. I was like, dang it. I was so hoping I was going to get him in that league, so I had to go a different route.
So we're looking at our lads, and as far as we know, Khalil Shakir is probably the number 1 in this offense. It's Curtis Samuel, obviously a good player, and they got Mac Hollins ranked as the left outside receiver. we know that's going to be Keon Coleman, right? No, that's not even a question.
Mac's going to play a lot, but he's a blocker. He's been in the league a long time. He's a special teams guy. He's a blocker. He works hard, but he's not going to catch a lot of balls. You're going to see a lot of Keon Coleman in there this year. I can't believe MVS made this squad. I just can't wait till he breaks a few hearts as Josh Allen puts one right in the bucket and he drops it on a 50-yard touchdown pass. So, we've learned to love that out of MVS over the years. I can't see much out of him. This is going to be a team I want to keep an eye on because we're guessing right now. I mean, you think Kincaid's going to see a majority of the balls, Shakur out of the slot, you would think, and then you think Coleman would get peppered with a ton of targets. So we're going to see kind of how things are going. I did just see, so it's going to see how they're going to adjust and do some things. I was going to bring up Brian Daboll, even though he's not the coach anymore. He was the offensive coordinator. He's now with the Giants. He just came out and said he's going to take over play calling duties. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there with the Giants. But here on the Bills, I keep an eye on this situation because it could be fluent with these guys, whether it is Shakur, whether it's Curtis Samuel, whether Coleman's the guy that gets all the passes. But their team's going to put the ball in the air. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll move now to the Miami Dolphins. That was my favorite team for a long time until Josh Allen came around. And then all of a sudden I became a Josh Allen fan, not so much a Buffalo Bills fan, but Josh Allen. And, it's getting that way where it is what it is. But Tua is the guy. I memean, he went nuts last year at quarterback, even though I can't stand he's supposed to be the most accurate quarterback. He throws the long balls, which nobody thought he could. I still, if you watch games, the kid, he should throw like 600 receptions a game, but his players make him look good. I'm not a Tua fan, but fantasy wise, you have to draft Tua. I can see him being somewhere in the 12 to 20 range this year. I don't think he's still going to be a quarterback one, but hey, what do you think about Tua? Am I overreacting to Tua? Is he going to be a top 5 quarterback again?
I know you don't like Tua. I like Tua, but I also like Tua because I like the players around him. I like Waddle. I love Tyreek Hill. The running game is really good. I just think, their head coach Mike McDaniel is just a really good offensive mind. So I like Tua maybe more because of the situation. If you take Tua and he was in New England, I would probably be out on Tua, to be honest with you. But in Miami, he looks real nice in that system. I like him. The big kind of camp surprise for them was Mike White getting cut and Skylar Thompson winning the backup job. So if you're in a regular redraft league, it probably doesn't matter at all. But if you're in a super flex or 2 QB league that gets kind of deep, you might want to grab Skylar Thompson off the waiver wire to back up Tua. I know I'm doing that in a couple of my leagues. And also the other one that's kind of a sneaky one for people who play Dynasty, Jalen Wright is on everybody's radar. But if you're just in redraft, he's a guy, if I've got Mozart or a Chain, I want Jalen Wright because if Chain goes down, Jalen Wright can come right in and do almost the exact same things he does. So he's a guy I definitely want as a handcuff in a redraft league because he might get you nothing. But if an injury happens, and we've seen both those guys get banged up quite a bit the last couple of years, Jalen Wright can come in, I think, and be exactly those guys. Tight ends, I'm avoiding. I know Jonnu Smith's here. Everybody thinks he's going to get a ton of passes. They have not used the tight end at all in this offense the last couple seasons. Durham Smythe was their number one receiver at tight end, and he's like looking at 30 catches, 300 yards. So I'm not getting too pumped about Jonnu. The one guy, the sneaky play, if you're in a deep league, is Braxton Berrios. He right now is the third wide receiver. He's going to do special teams, kick and punt return, most likely. So if you're in a league that gives you points for that, he could get you some sneaky double-digit games without having a ton of catches. Everybody thought it was going to be Odell Beckham. He's on the injury reserve. They don't know how long he's going to be out. That kind of seems like a crazy situation. I do like in long-term down the line Malik Washington. I thought he might end up beating out Braxton Berrios for that slot position. If he ends up winning that slot position, watch out because he was a target hog in college at Virginia, led the nation in receptions, triple digits, over 100 receptions his final year at Virginia. So if he's the guy that ends up winning that slot spot, which I think he could, as he's a rookie, I think he could throughout the season. But Braxton Berrios in a high-powered offense, to me, is at least interesting, someone to keep an eye on in case he can put together some decent games as the wide receiver 3 there.
Yeah, and for running backs, Jalen Wright he's fast like Devin Achane. He's big like Raheem Mostert. It's a matter of time before I think he takes over his backfield. So late in your drafts, if you only drafted Mostert or Achane and Wright's still on the waiver wire, that's definitely someone to go after right now. Make sure you stick him somewhere on your roster. I think he'll have a huge role towards the end of this year because most of it's a free agent after this year. So that's just it. And Washington, like we said, there's two studs on this team. Barrios is just there for special teams, and Malik at Washington is another guy. If you got a spot somewhere in a 17 or 18 man roster, if Hill or Waddle was to go down, looking at Malik Washington would step into a huge role on this team. So
I agree. Yeah, if Waddle, there's questions about whether he's healthy to start this year. If Waddle ends up, him or Tyreek go out, like I said, might see a lot of Malik Washington all of a sudden. So that's something to keep an eye on.
So let's move to the Jets now. We're looking at the Patriots. We'll go to the New England Patriots next. So Patriots at quarterback, Jacoby Brissett starting the season. They've already announced that. Drake May and my boy Joe Milton. You don't have to worry about him drafting him at all this year in any kind of leagues whatsoever. He's not starting, even though I want him to start. I want him to be the guy. I want him to be the man. Drake May is eventually going to take this job over, we think. But Jacoby Brissett, until they lose too many games or until Drake May's ready, Jacoby Brissett will be the starter. So if you saw that news and you got Jacoby Brissett in your team, make sure Drake May is somewhere in the backup in 2 quarterback leagues. In 1 quarterback leagues, I wouldn't even bother taking him. So that's the disclaimer there, I guess. And then Stevenson is going to be the early down ground and pound guy. But anytime they audible, he's more than available to catch balls out of the backfield too. So he can catch the ball just fine. Gibson is not so much a runner between the tackles, but he is definitely a good receiver out of the backfield. So the wide receiver core here, Demario Douglas, Nick Scripps' favorite guy, Jalen Polk. He's probably going to be the number 1 in this offense. But this is kind of a big mishmash. What do you think about this offense here? I don't even I'm not even a big fan of Hunter Henry on this offense.
I know in a redraft league, I don't think I want anybody outside of Stevenson on this team. I really don't. We don't know what's going to happen with wide receiver. I do like Jalen Polk in Dynasty. I even got some Javon Baker on some leagues where I took Drake May, hoping they kind of can grow together. Is Demario Douglas, is he a flash in the pan, and was he a 1-year kind of wonder because they had no one else last year?
Yes, he was.
Tyquan Thornton, still waiting for him to do anything. Hunter Henry is, if there's no tight end premium or it's not like a deep league where you can start multiple tight ends, I don't even know if I want Hunter Henry. I really probably am just avoiding this team altogether in redraft. I do like some of these guys for dynasty purposes long term, but man, redraft, it's who knows what's going to happen there in New England. And if you look at all the experts, a lot of people expecting this team to maybe be the worst team in the league this year. So it's going to be interesting offensively. I would not want to trust them.
No, so let's move to the Jets here. We know Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback. Hopefully he'll be healthy and keep it together all season long because it's only going to help all the offensive weapons if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Breece Hall, absolute stud. Braylon Allen, I like Braylon Allen a lot. The NFL did not. He went like the 4th round, so late in the 4th round anyway. I love Braylon Allen. I don't think he could be Breece Hall, but he could definitely be a good handcuff. So as far as handcuffs are concerned, you got Isaiah Davis, Israel Abandakanda, who I liked a lot, but he's more of an early down pounder than he's a receiver out of the backfield. Braylon Allen, in college, he wasn't really as a good pass blocker. I'm not sure. He didn't run the 40, so everybody knocked him out slowly. He looked good on tape, though, man. You watch him, he was burning DBs and stuff. I don't understand what the problem was with Braylon Allen, but he's definitely the backup to have if you have Breece Hall, handcuff, Braylon Allen. And then Garrett Wilson in the receiving corps. You got Mike Williams, Xavier Gibson. But that Aaron Rodgers loves his man Allen Lazard, so Lazard's going to get something in here. But he's not rosterable, I don't think. So, tell me about this Jets team. But and on top of it, I want to know what do you think about Tyler Conklin?
Yeah, so I think you're right in that. Braylon Allen's a guy I want to have. Like I was real nervous. I wasn't taking him to any leagues early on because I was like, where is he fit? Is he 3rd, 4th string on the team? But he's won the backup job to Breece Hall, and we know how valuable that position can be for the Jets. So if Breece Hall got hurt at all, Braylon Allen could immediately become a stud. So I like him there. I'm not sold on Xavier Gibson as an actual starting wide receiver, not more of just a return guy. Mike Williams, we've seen the injury after injury. I've never been an Allen Lazard guy. The guy I'm interested in is Malachi Corley, especially for Dynasty redraft. I could see himself working in there. I don't think he's going to be big early in the season, but I'm keeping an eye on him. That he's a guy I possibly want to pick up if some of these guys kind of fade off. I actually think Tyler Conklin's going to be better than a lot of people think.
Yes.
If you're just in a regular 12-team league, start 1 tight end, no premium, Yeah, Conklin's probably right on that verge of is he, draftable at all? But I think he's actually pretty deep, pretty good. And if you're in deeper leagues and if you're like looking to stash somebody for the future in tight end premium, I actually like Jeremy Rucker. I've held him for a couple years. He's just coming on that year 3, 4, which it takes tight ends a while to get there. I mean, people forget he was a third round pick out of Ohio State. So it's not like he's just some Joe Smo. So I actually think Jeremy Ruckert's going to get better. Obviously, redraft, you don't want to even mess with him, but he's worth a stash in bigger dynasty leagues for me. Someone I would pick up early on if I've got room on my roster because I think he's going to actually do a little something this year.
Is he worth like a early year roster pickup right now? Or are you sticking with Tyler Conklin, right?
I'm sticking with Conklin. I'm only taking Rucker if I'm like in a league where I've got bench spots. I've got spots where I could throw a guy on a taxi squad. If certain leagues, you can put guys on first, second year guys on taxi, and then they have to come off. He's sitting on some of my taxis. So if you're picking him up right now, you're probably not allowed to put him on your taxi squad. So if you're in a deep league, or if like you're in a rebuild and your team's going to be pretty bad and you need some tight ends, just possible guys for the future, he's a guy I look at. But he's not rosterable right now, especially in a redraft. And Conklin's on the edge for me. I could see Conklin being valuable because I just don't trust a lot of these weapons outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall for the Jets. So I could see Conklin technically being their third option behind those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So all right, let's go to the Dallas Cowboys now, the NFC East. So still the unsigned Dak Prescott. I don't know what's going on there, but we got is CeeDee Lamb going to start the season out on the run because he's been kind of sitting. A lot of times when these guys sit out or hold out, things don't work out. A lot of times you see him get hurt, or that it takes a while to catch up to par. Is CeeDee Lamb that good where he can overcome those kind of situations? Because I've heard before that he's due for like 160 targets this year. Like this might be the CeeDee Lamb break the record season. What do you think about this offense altogether? Because I'm a Jake Ferguson fan. They're going to have to throw a lot because they got Zeke, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn in the backfield here, and Zeke cannot hold the fort down. Rico Dowdle is not a proven asset. He's a decent player, but I mean, Deuce Vaughn's so small. He's not going to be a 3-down back if something was to happen. So I like Tolbert, but Brandon Cooks is probably number 2 here. What is this? Who are we picking up here? If something was to go wrong with the receiving core, like a Ryan Florino. There's a lot of questions on this offense. What do you kind of break down this Dallas Cowboys? Because now Lamb's back. We know that he's going to get all the passes, but what's behind him?
Yeah, I think, everybody expects this team to throw all day long because they don't really have a set running game. I think they're going to be not as good as they've been in the past, so they're going to have to put the ball up a lot. Obviously, I think CD, you're always worried about injuries when guys miss camp because you're just like, hey, are you going to be, in top physical form? So I'm not worried about him coming in and getting and making plays. My worry is does he stay healthy? If he does, I think you're set there. That's not even a question. You're playing him every week. I think the real question is the backups behind him. Like you said, I like Ferguson at tight end. I think that's a nice move. The question is, can Brandon Cooks again have another solid season? He seems to keep doing it over and over again. And then I think the big question mark for them is, can Jalen Tolbert be fantasy relevant? Now he's going to play. But is he going to play good enough to actually stay on the field and score you enough points to actually have him in your lineup in anything that's not best ball? That's the big question mark for me. So he's a guy I'm definitely keeping an eye on. I picked him up off the waivers at the end of last season in a bunch of leagues where I was kind of out of it and I knew I was going to need some help the next year. I picked him up in a couple leagues. So I'm holding him, hoping he does something. He's a guy to keep an eye on. If you're in regular redraft, probably not looking at Tolbert whatsoever, and you're probably only looking at Brandon Cooks if you're like desperate, or you have Dak and you're like, maybe I can steal a stack out of it. But I don't, unless either of those guys hit big in the first couple of weeks, I don't see people running to the waiver wires to pick them up.
No, it's 100% agree with that. I don't. As far as what do you think's going to shake out in this backfield? I mean,
I have no idea. I mean, I just think they're going to give Zeke the ball as much as they can until he's worn out, and then they'll bring in Rico Dowdle. I think they'll play a little bit of Deuce Vaughn, but I don't know I've got a hard time believing any of these guys are going to be like someone you want on your fantasy team like that. They're going to be able to put up enough stat. I mean, I think you're going to get Zeke's going to get some TDs. They'll get close enough to the goal line. They'll be able to pound him in with him sometimes, but is he going to be able to carry the ball like he used to and get you 1,200 yards? I mean, I think if you get 700 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns out of Zeke this year, I think you might be pretty happy with it.
I'm thinking that Khalil Herbert's going to be shipped here within the next first couple weeks of the season.
I tell you what, his fantasy value would go way up if he did. I agree with you. If you put Khalil Herbert on this team right now, I guarantee his fantasy value would be way higher. People would be all over him on this team.
I got him almost everywhere for that purpose. That's how I'm wish casting that situation here. So, all right. So we jump to the Giants now. We got Daniel Jones. We know he's going to be the starter. Drew Lock's there for moral support. Even though we love Drew Lock, me and you are both Drew Lock homers here. I think Daniel Jones is going to get like his fair share of this whole season. So if you got Daniel Jones, you got to keep him here. You got Devin Singletary, who the coaching staff absolutely loves. Tyrone Tracy is a training camp hero. I have Eric Gray in about every league that I'm in because I think that he's a decent running back, but this is going to be a mishmash. I'm really not sure. You don't need to worry about grabbing anybody for a backup on your team here. There's no handcuffs available. Just take Singletary and kind of walk away, is what I think. And then Malik Neighbors is probably going to do this entire offense. He's probably going to get 732,000 receptions this year. He's going to be the CeeDee Lamb of the Giants on this team. I as far as other receptions go, Bellinger and Theo Johnson are still fighting for spots in the camp. It might be 2 tight ends. That's a lot. Who knows what's going to happen there? But the only fantasy viable player I want on this team is Malik Neighbors. Is there anybody on this team you want to throw in like as in late round picks for any kind of fantasy value?
The guy I want to keep an eye on, I'm not taking him right now in a redraft, but a guy I'm keeping an eye out is Wan'Dale Robinson. When he's been healthy, he's actually been able to put up some pretty nice stats. He's just been hurt. So if he stays healthy, I think this Giants team could be down a lot this year. Like I mentioned earlier, Brian Daboll says he's taking over the play calling duties for the Giants this year. So I could see Robinson being a sneaky fantasy play because this team's going to throw the ball a ton. Yeah, the Bellinger, Theo Johnson, unless you're in a high tight end premium league, I probably don't want to mess with either one of those guys. Drew Lock, I'm rostering in a lot of leagues where I have 2 quarterback, or if I have a super flex league and Daniel Jones is on my team and he's my second QB in a super flex league, I am rostering Lock because I think Lock's a very similar player that can put up stats if he gets in there. So I am doing that, but I wouldn't have him if I didn't have that. Devin Singletary, I think, is going to be a little bit of a sneaky play this year. I think they're going to try to run the ball as much as they can with him. Daboll loves him. He was his first pick when they were going to get a free agent when they didn't re-sign Saquon Barkley. So that made him jump up my list. I got a lot of Singletary in redraft leagues. I think he could be nice. If it's deeper leagues, I do have quite a bit of Eric Gray, like you said. I think if something happens to Singletary, Gray, not Tyrone Tracy, ends up being the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Dynasty football key kickoff in 2 days. Yes, sir. Set them lineups. Get your backups in. Get everything set up.
I get it. I'm at the point now. I put everything in it on Tuesday, just in case anything crazy happens. Then I go back on Thursday and I recheck it on Thursday if I hear any news for anything. So I've learned my lesson. Wait until Thursday and then trying to get everything in before the game starts.
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. So, all right, let's jump to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts for sure, maybe quarterback 1 predicted this year. Backup Kenny Pickett, even if he gets the job as the backup, you could wait. I wouldn't even pick him up. I don't think he's that good where he'd be a fantasy starter on your team, even if he was a starting quarterback for this team. But you're looking at Saquon Barkley. He is definitely a pickup. My boy, Kenny Gainwell. The problem is Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley will probably split everything if something was to happen to Barkley. So I'm not sure which one of those guys would be the one to pick up. On this depth chart, it shows Gainwell as number 2, but I think in reality, Will Shipley's probably the backup right now for Saquon. So I would probably target Shipley more than Kenny Gainwell, as much as it hurts me to say that. And then you got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and newly acquired Jahan Dotson on the team. Do you think, real fast though, but the tight end Dallas Goedert, I think Dallas Goedert, do you think he's going to get phased out by this Jahan Dotson signing?
I don't. I mean, I know there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Philly, but when Goddard, he's another one. When he's been healthy, he has produced. He was a steal this year in drafts, redraft and dynasty. He was dropping big time in drafts. He was very, very good value. If he, for some reason, didn't get drafted in one of your leagues, like if you're a smaller bench where you can't really roster 2 tight ends, and so he maybe went through, then he's a guy I want to look at and get in. Dotson's a total wait and see. You don't know how he's going to fit into this system. Are they going to throw enough that those 3 wideouts plus Goddard is viable? I don't know. I love Barkley in redraft. if something happens to him, yeah, it'd be tough to see if Kenny Gainwell or Shipley get the job or if they split it. So that's a tough handcuff there for me. I've got quite a bit of Barkley, and I didn't really handcuff him with either one of those guys because I didn't think either one would for sure get all the carries if he went out.
Yeah, and if something happens to Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra is not going to be anything that's going to be roster.
No, you don't need. Yeah, you don't want him. I like Goddard. Like I said, if he for some reason people were nervous about him and they didn't take him, and he's just sitting there on your waiver wire in a redraft league with short benches, keep an eye out. He might end up being better than the guy you drafted in front of him. So just keep an eye on him.
So Washington Commanders, we jumped to Jaden Daniels is the quarterback one. It's been officially official. Marcus Mariota, as much as I love the GOAT, he won me a lot of money in college on New Year's Day game when he played for Oregon. That's one reason I like him so much, but I don't think he'd fill in at all. We saw Marcus Mariota. He's kind of he was more of a let's hope this happens more than when he goes on the field, doesn't do too much. So if you got Jaden Daniels, I wouldn't worry about having Marcus Mariota as a backup. There's better options out there. Zach Ertz was kind of a sneaky signing here. I was all about the Ben Sinnott thing, and I still think Ben Sinnott's going to be the dynasty tight end here. But I think for the beginning of the season, I think you have to have Zach Ertz on your team. John Bates is listed as number 2 tight end in this league, but I think Ben Sinnott will be number 2 fastest sooner than later. But either way, he's not like a redraft pickup right now. It's going to be Zach Ertz, and probably that's it. Terry McLaurin's the name to talk about here. He is the number 1 in this offense, the undisputed number 1 in this offense. So if you have Terry McLaurin, there's some other guys on this. Luke McCaffrey is a rookie that a lot of people had a lot of praise for. Jameson Crowder, Olamide Zacharias, Diami Brown, who was a fan favorite for a long time, just fell out of grace. Nothing that's ever going to happen. I'm not sure. But besides Terry McLaurin, do you want anything else on this team besides Brian Robinson and maybe Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I don't. I want Terry McLaurin, and if Jaden Daniels knows what's good for him, he will go and play like Taylor Heineke used to. Taylor Heineke used to just pepper Terry McLaurin with the ball, double teams, triple teams. He threw them to him anyway. That's what he should do. I do not know what they're doing with this wide receiver group. I don't want to touch any of these guys other than Luke McCaffrey, the rookie in Dynasty. I don't want to touch any of these guys. Brian Robinson, I think, will be solid. I don't know what to think about Eckler on this team, if he's going to just be anything. And then I'm nervous about Zach Ertz. I've only got him in a couple leagues where I just have no tight ends in pretty high premium leagues. But, man, he really fell off at the end with Arizona. And then he basically was like, oh, let me go. I want to sign with a contender. And, no one wanted him. And then just all of a sudden he randomly signs with the Commanders this year. I'm very nervous that Ertz has got anything left. I really am. He's one of those guys, if you have him as your tight end right now, I definitely would already be looking on the waiver wire to see who's another guy you could grab if Ertz either gets hurt or just is not part of this offense at all to get things going.
Would you even take Ben Sinnott right now if you were in a redraft?
I wouldn't in a redraft. It's so hard to see these rookies hit at tight end. I mean, the problem is Laporta and Kincaid were so good last year that everyone's like, oh, yeah, all these guys are going to be that way. I don't think so. And I think the Sinnott's going to be used in a lot of different ways. I think I'm going to use him as like a fullback, kind of an H-back, second tight end. I like him as a player. I just don't think he's going to have a lot of fantasy value, at least this year, outside of like a huge tight end premium league where you got to play or start multiple tight ends where you might possibly need him. But in a roto redraft league, I don't even think he's worth rostering right now. I keep an eye on him. If he ends up taking over the job for sure, and they are using their tight end a lot, then yeah, he could be worth it. But right now, I wouldn't.
You would not. I would not waste a roster spot right now, 100%. All right, we're done with the East. Let's go to the Norths. Start off with the Baltimore Ravens here. We know for sure that we have no problem with Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry might run the ball 375,000 times this year. I mean, they brought him in there to be the workhorse. They wanted him there. He wanted to be there. He's finally there. They're going to use him like crazy. Those two are just fantasy gold right there. And then you got Mark Andrews. And Isaiah Likely's getting a lot of buzz this offseason from going with the 2 tight end sets with Zay Flowers on the outside and possibly Rashad Bateman or Nelson Aguilar in the slot sometimes. But honestly, Zay Flowers, the receiver, and then Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. Who's the fourth option on this team that you'd want to pick up if you were in a redraft fantasy football league?
So in redraft, I like Zay Flowers. I don't know what to think about Rashad Bateman and Aguilar. I can't believe Aguilar's still holding a starting spot, which is pretty
Right.
unbelievable to me. I think they're going to play a lot of Likely. If you look back at Likely in college, he really was a slot wide receiver more than a tight end. I think he ends up getting a lot of play with Andrews this year. And of course, if Andrews gets hurt like he did last year, I think Likely becomes a big time fantasy guy. I think he could be really good. The one guy I really want to handcuff on this team is Derrick Henry. I think they're going to run the ball a ton. Justice Hill right now is the backup, but he's always kind of just been okay. He's never really been anything special in the pros, and he's constantly had to fight back from injury. I really like Rasheen Ali, the rookie out of Marshall. Talked about him a ton. If I have Henry in a league, even in redraft, I'm probably picking up Ali as a handcuff or keeping an eye in case I see Henry get nicked up, then I want to go after and pick him up right away. But right now, they're not 100% saying he's the backup, which is why you see him on a lot of waivers. But he's a guy, if I've got Henry, I've got my eye on him because I think he's talented enough that if Henry goes down for multiple weeks, he could take over the starting role and actually be an RB1, RB2 in fantasy for you.
Yeah, Justice Hill's been a goal line back. He scores some points. He's been a better best ball guy than he is a fantasy contributor. But yeah, Rasheen Ali, I think, is the person to have it. The offense opens up a little bit if Rasheen Ali gets the job too. So
I agree. He can catch the ball in the backfield. The guy's got good speed. And I don't trust Devontae Walker, the rookie out of North Carolina. I don't trust Aguilar. I don't trust Bateman. No. I've got Bateman in some bigger, deeper leagues where I'm just like, we start like 12 and I've got to have other wide receivers. But man, even the leagues I have him in that I'm starting him, I'm not happy about it. I'm only doing it because out of just absolutely pure necessity. If I'm in a regular redraft league, I wouldn't even have him anywhere near my roster.
Nowhere near the roster, 100%. No, want nothing to do with that. So let's move down to the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals, we know Joe Burrow is the man here. Zach Moss, Chase Brown, Travion Williams. I'm not sure. He's just a special teamer, but I'm not sure. I think Chase Brown's probably going to win this job as far as the backfield's concerned. I'm targeting Chase Brown everywhere. I'm not going after Zach Moss, even if he's available. I'd probably pass him up and get a receiver or a tight end or something in the area. And this tight end area, this Mike Gesicki playing in the third, all the way to the third quarter through the preseason games. I don't know what's going to happen there. I love Eric Hall, but that's a long-term investment, not a redraft guy right now.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure they're going to use any of these tight ends at all. It's going to be the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins show, and then the Charlie Jones, Andre Yosevich kind of debacle that's on the third receiver here. That's going to be the one to watch. So what do you think about this for redraft wise? Besides these starters we know are absolute studs across the board, what are you looking at for on a redraft team?
I completely agree with your Chase Brown Moss take. I'm 100% with you on that. I feel the exact same way. Tight end, yeah, in redraft, absolutely do not want Mike Gesicki. Don't want any of these guys. I'm stashing Eric All in deeper dynasty leagues. The guy to watch is Jermaine Burton, the rookie. If he ends up winning a spot, he's got the talent to be a third wide receiver on this team. You know, the Jamar Chase mess of him not practicing. Is he going to play week one without a contract? If they don't get a contract done, what's going on there? If that happens, T. Higgins and Burton could end up being huge if they've got to replace Jamar Chase's targets. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on. Burton is probably the third guy. Some of those other guys might be more available during best ball or dynasty leagues, but I'm not taking him in redraft. The only guy in redraft I would be considering would be Jermaine Burton, and that's if this Jamar Chase thing just absolutely becomes a debacle. And then I want Burton because they're going to have to throw to somebody. And I know a lot of people are high on the Bengals. I don't think the Bengals are as good as people think they are, and I think they have the worst defense in this division pretty handily, honestly. And this is a really tough division. So I think the Bengals could actually be a decent team and still struggle to get to 500 this year. So I think they're going to be in a lot of games where they're going to have to score. So that's kind of my take on them. Outside of those guys we talked about, I'm probably avoiding everyone else outside of Chase Brown. I want Chase Brown. I want Burrow. I want T. Higgins, and I want Jamar Chase. But other than that, I don't think I want any of the rest of these guys.
Move to the Browns. Your boy, Deshaun Watson, is the quarterback. He had three top quarterback one finishes last season out of the 5 games or 5.5 games he played. They signed my boy Famous Jameis to be the backup just in case things don't work out or something happens with Watson's his arm. But Jerome Ford is going to be the man. He's going to get all the carries. They got Pierce Strong. They recently signed. They brought back Deonta Foreman, which I thought was a good move on their part too. But Jerome Ford will probably be the running back to own in this offense. You're looking at tight end, which I was very impressed with. I like David Njoku for a long time. It shows you that when you go right after these tight ends when they're younger, and you have so much expectations, and it's like, come on, you wait for Njoku, and all of a sudden this guy goes off, and he'll probably be a top 10 tight end this year, probably top 8 tight end this year, even with that. So Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy. What do you think about all those?
Sorry, John, I had a little technical difficulty there. I'm back into the mix here. I'm out on Deshaun Watson. I've said it for a while now. I just don't think we're going to get the Deshaun Watson of old. I don't think he's coming back. I think he had some good games last year because the offense really kind of gave him the opportunity to score, as you saw when Joe Flacco got in there and put up great fantasy numbers. So I think the offense is fantasy friendly. I just don't love Watson. I would actually love Jameis Winston in this offense if he got a chance to play in it. Njoku's a guy I want. I think Jerome Ford's super underrated. If for some reason he didn't get drafted in your redraft league, which I would be shocked, but if he didn't, he's the first player I pick it up off the waiver wire. I think Ford's the guy you want here. I think Amari Cooper is going to be in a friendly system. I'm not 100% sold on the rest of these guys. So in redraft, I'm probably out on Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, any of these guys. I'm not taking them. Dynasty, I still think they got some value that we're stashing, but I'm probably on Ford, Njoku, and Cooper are probably the only 3 guys for the Browns I want.
Man, I tried trading like Elijah Moore yesterday for like a backup running back. Who's the Chiefs' new running back they just signed last couple of days? Shit, I don't know why his name, I'm blanking on it. But when we get to the Chiefs, I'll remember who it is. But I mean, I can't give Elijah Moore away. And he was a good receiver as a rookie. He does pretty good. This offense, he's going to get some looks, but I mean, none of these guys. If I have a redraft team, I was always a David Bell guy. I like Cedric Tillman. They drafted him to replace David Bell. He's not doing anything. I don't think there's any. I mean, what do you see about Jerry Jeudy? Would you have Jerry Jeudy on like a start 12 team redraft with only like a 5-man bench?
I wouldn't. I like Jeudy coming out of school. It's just been a mess. He's got a chance to really, change his career around with a big year this year. And this team, I think, is going to put the ball in the air enough. He's going to have the opportunity. Now, does he take over? I'm not certain Jeudy, but he's a guy I have on my watch list. If they come out and they sling it around kind of like they did last year, excuse me, sorry about that. Then he's a guy I think could be fantasy relevant. I really think he can. I just don't know if it's going to happen. So I have my eye on him, but I'm not starting him now. I wouldn't start him here the first couple of weeks until you see what happens with the Browns.
JT, I'm going to give you the honor to go through the Pittsburgh Steelers from start to finish and tell me who your guys are, because I know how big of a Steelers fan you are.
I'm big on Najee Harris this year. I've said it all along. People have kind of been down on him. The offense has been terrible. The O-line's been terrible. He still has 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. That just doesn't happen. I think he's going to have a better year. I like Jalen Warren. People are like, oh, Jalen Warren's going to steal touches. No, they're going to play them both. I have teams where I have both guys, and I literally play both of them every week. So they're good players. I like them. Pat Freiermuth is a guy that really fell off because of the injury last year. But again, 2 great first 2 seasons, 60 catches, 600 yards, the touchdowns. 1 year he had 7, 1 year he had 1. I think he's been a guy that's been good late in drafts. If somebody didn't take him, he's a guy I want to keep on my waiver wire. The wide receivers are rough. George Pickens, I absolutely want. I have George Pickens everywhere. I don't want anything to do with Van Jefferson. And I'm only taking Calvin Austin in a best ball league where I can have a deep roster and he can win me a week with like an 80-yard touchdown catch. Because I think he's going to be in on some plays, but he's just not a guy you can trust every week in a regular league. I would not roster him in a regular redraft league, only in a best ball league. And then I like Roman Wilson a lot, but he missed a lot of camp with the injury. Yeah. He's a guy I'm going to have on my radar. I think he beats out Van Jefferson for the number 2 spot eventually on this team. The question is, how much volume is that second wide receiver for the Steelers really going to get? I think this team wants to run the ball. And I think Pat Freiermuth ends up being their number 2 behind Pickens. So I think Wilson could help, but I just don't see him being super fantasy relevant this year. So he's not a guy I'm rostering and redraft. I'm keeping an eye on him in case he ends up really kind of taking over as the wide receiver 2 role for them. Then I'm taking him. I'm not taking Russ in any 1 QB leagues, even in Superflex. I only had him if I got desperate, it got real late, and he was one of the only starters left. I am taking Justin Fields, and if I have a little bit of roster space in like a 1 QB league as a potential backup, because I think he could, if he gets in there, put up great points. But he's probably one of the only quarterbacks I'm taking in like a 1 QB league and stashing it just in case he ends up eventually winning this starting job for the Steelers.
Yeah, his legs alone will get this team, get enough fantasy points to. You saw what he did with the Bears. You saw, he's got a decent arm too when he's got time. The Steelers don't have a great offensive line. It's not the worst in the league, but it's pretty bad, as far as that goes. And Calvin Austin, like you said, he's just a small field stretcher. If Roman Wilson didn't get hurt, I would have considered having him in a redraft league, but missing all this time as a rookie to start the season, that puts you like 6 or 8 weeks behind in the real NFL.
He's a guy I wouldn't even look till like bye weeks. Like if he starts working his way in, maybe he's a pickup at that point, but he's not worth rostering this early in the year, not knowing what his role is going to be on this team.
Yes, absolutely. So the Steelers, as far as JT is concerned, for redraft concerns, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Najee, and Jaylen Warren, and just if you have room to stash Justin Fields, you can leave him on the waiver wire, and maybe if you have a hunch, get him a week early or something like that. But that's about as far as I'll go. NFC North, Chicago Bears, the Bears. We got our guy, new Caleb Williams, new quarterback, probably the best quarterback of all time. He's already been named the best quarterback in Bears history. It's not hard to do, but he's already been named that. I'm really curious about how DeAndre Swift's going to do this year because I have him like 4 or 5 teams, and man, I'm wish casting him to do something, but I'm not a humongous DeAndre Swift fan. So I'm saying, make it happen. Please make it happen. But they don't really need the running back to do so much because this receiving core of DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and Keenan Allen is just absolutely stud wise. And at tight end, you got Cole Kmet, who's not absolutely terrible, but he's not a good fantasy option. He's a great NFL tight end, but for fantasy, he's not. He's a great tight end 2, but not a good tight end 1. What do you like about the Bears in the redraft? Who would you take that it's a backup besides these 5 starters that you would who are you targeting in a redraft league?
Yeah. Sorry about that. We had talked about a little. If Khalil Herbert ends up getting moved, he's a guy I want to keep an eye on. Now he's going to be probably tough to stash on your bench right now. But if he came in and Swift got hurt, I could see him being good. Caleb Williams is worth taking a shot, especially if you're in a redraft keeper league. I've been trying to get him a little bit, pretty late in drafts as a potential keeper. DJ Moore, I think, is a stud. He should be on everybody's roster. Dunze, you'd think he fell a lot farther than Neighbors and Harrison in a lot of my redraft leagues. I was a little surprised about it. And Keenan Allen actually was receiving a little bit of hate. But I like all those guys. Here's the thing also to remember here on these waiver wire moves. It might not always be waiver wire week 1 or 2, but maybe waiver wire week 3 where someone gets tired of a guy because he doesn't play well at the beginning of the year, doesn't put up big stats, and they cut him. You can go grab a guy and end up winning a league because of that. It's done. It's happened to me plenty of times. So say one of these Bears wide receivers don't get a lot of targets the first couple of weeks and someone drops them thinking, oh, he's not going to be the man. I wouldn't mind grabbing any of these guys. I think the Bears are going to throw the ball a lot. I think this NFC North is going to be a little more offensive explosive than people realize this year. I think there's going to be some shootouts in this thing. So I like the fact that I think the Bears can put up some pretty good points. And I think these guys can all be fantasy relevant. I think DeAndre Swift's numbers are really going to matter how many balls he catches out of the backfield. I think if he can get 50 catches out of the backfield, you're going to have a pretty nice year out of him. If it ends up being closer to like 20, 25, I think you're going to be disappointed in what Swift gives you. And Kmet, like you said, I like Kmet, but he's just not a great tight end 1 option. It'll just be to see how they get him the ball. Fields liked him, so Fields got him the ball a lot, but they also have a lot more people that are a lot more talented on the team this year than they had last year.
If you're drafting, everybody always says the cheapest option. I mean, 1, 2, 3. Where do you pay? DJ Moore is probably the first guy you're targeting if you can get him somewhere like it, and then is it? I mean, Rome Odunze, he's someone you could probably get way before Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen might have more receptions than Rome Odunze this year, right?
In redraft, I'm probably going with the veteran Keenan Allen, and then Odunze. Obviously, like I said, if you're like in a keeper league where you can keep one or two, and you start seeing guys drop, and I would maybe jump on Odunze thinking you might get a good keeper value out of them. But those ones are tough. I saw Keenan Allen going pretty early in some leagues, and I saw other leagues where people just basically forgot about him, and he was going way late. I couldn't believe it. And Odunze, as far as if you want a young rookie guy, in a lot of my redraft leagues, Marvin Harrison and Neighbors were going really high. I mean, high in like second, third round high, and Odunze wasn't going until around like 10, 11, 12. So if you missed out on one of those guys and still wanted a young stud, Odunze is a guy you can actually you probably got later. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're in some leagues with short benches where he maybe didn't get drafted. If they're just a bench with only 3 or 4 spots and people were nervous about having a guy that's sharing a ton of touches.
All right, so these are the reasons that the Bears are not going to win the NFC this year is because the NFC North this year is because you got the Lions and the Packers in this division. And the Lions, we got Jared Goff at quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs is absolutely fantastic running back. Paired together with David Montgomery, that's a great 1-2 punch, like thunder and lightning kind of. I mean, absolutely, but I mean, way better than lightning. It's like thunder and lightning and thunder, like kind of in the same backfield. And then Sam Laporta is an absolute stud tight end. Had tons of targets last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is just a beast all across the board. I mean, you can't ask for a better receiver. He's one of the top 5 receivers in this league. Interchangeable with some of the other guys on the top. And then undervalued Jameson Williams. They say he's come a long way. These guys are going to get Jameson Williams. You see some gimmick plays, some bombs. He's more kind of like a best ball guy than he's a producer as of this point. If you're in a redraft league of, let's say, 16 or 17 players redraft leagues with a kicker and a defense, are you taking anybody besides Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown? Are you going after Jameson or Khalif Raymond?
No, I'm avoiding those guys unless it's like a deep league and I'm starting 12, 13, and it's 12, 14 team league and I need some help. I'm really shocked that Khalif Raymond is the starter coming in this year. I've had him on some teams for a while. The guy's usually a good special teams guy, gets, 4th, 5th wide receiver, but he's like set as the starter. I know we're talking more redraft here, but if you're in a dynasty league and you haven't picked up Isaiah Williams yet, you need to jump on Isaiah Williams. Former quarterback at University of Illinois, turned into a wide receiver, was all Big Ten last year on a team that really did not throw the ball well. He played awesome. The fact that he clear out made this roster not a practice squad guy, but he is the 4th wide receiver. I can easily see him taking Khalif Raymond's spot in the starting lineup pretty soon. He is definitely a stash in Dynasty. You haven't grabbed Isaiah Williams, do it. Redraft, I'm avoiding Jameis Williams until I see something. I need to see it. I need to see it on a little more regular basis before I'm willing to put him on my roster and think about playing him every week.
Who was the guy that just cut on his team that everybody had their fingers crossed for years that he was going to be he's got 3 names.
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah,
we're looking forever. I was really shocked that Khalif Raymond made it over him. I think it's because Khalif Raymond is their special teams guy. Khalif Raymond is a lot of times he's the punt returner and sometimes kick returns. So I think that made the difference. The question's really going to be interesting here, and I got to keep your eye on is Tim Patrick. So Tim Patrick, everybody don't come out multiple years, season-ending injuries for the Broncos. They surprisingly cut him. People were really mad. He was a team favorite when he got cut. He got signed to the Lions. He is on the practice squad with the idea that they're going to move him up. He's a guy I want to keep an eye on because if Jameson Williams struggles and Khalif Raymond doesn't do what they think he can do at wide receiver, there's a chance Tim Patrick comes in and takes over as the number 2 wideout on this team. Behind Laporta. So he'd be the team's 3rd option. But this team's going to move the ball a lot of offense. So they have enough firepower to make 3, 4, 5 guys fantasy relevant. So that's a situation I'm keeping an eye on. Isaiah Williams, Tim Patrick, who ends up becoming that number 2 wideout for the Lions. Is it one of those guys? Does Jameson Williams finally get it together and become the guy that the Lions thought he was going to be when they drafted him? So we'll have to keep an eye on that situation.
So let's talk about some fantasy firepower here with the Green Bay Packers. You got Jordan Love, who looked really good last year, came out of nowhere and just took the league by storm. Josh Jacobs, great signing, first year of the team, but it doesn't take long for Josh Jacobs to get acclimated. It doesn't really take running backs very long to get acclimated to a new team. That's more of a receiver thing. But you also got Marshawn Lloyd as a handcuff. I think he's a very adequate handcuff. I would make sure if I was on a redraft team, if I had Josh Jacobs or somebody else had Josh Jacobs, I would have Lloyd stashed somewhere. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. Some people think Tucker Kraft is better than Luke Musgrave. I don't want to touch either one of these guys because you got, this whole receiving corps is Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Bo Melton, like Dontavian Wicks. They have so much talent in the receiving corps. I can say these guys are
John, I think we lost you there for a second. Yeah, I like the Packers here. So many mouths to feed. I don't want either tight ends right now. I would much rather take Jaden Reed. He's my guy. If I'm doing anything, I'm taking Jaden Reed here. If I'm in a best ball league, I do like the Tavion Wicks. So if I'm in best ball, I like Tavion Wicks, and I think he could be really good on this team, but I don't know if it's going to be every week. I would be very nervous to start him in a lineup league. But Jaden Reed's probably my guy I want out of this group. It's just going to be hard. It's going to be so hard to figure out week to week who ends up being the guy here, as I just think they're going to mix a ton of guys in. And like you said, A.J. Dillon out for the season. Marshawn Lloyd's been banged up, so he hasn't got a lot of pub in the preseason here. But if anything happens to Josh Jacobs, I think it becomes Marshawn Lloyd's job for sure. So I definitely want Lloyd. I'm stashing him. Even if I don't have Josh Jacobs, I'm stashing Marshawn Lloyd because I think he could work his way in the lineup. And if something does happen, he could end up being a starting running back for you in redraft. I love him at Dynasty, but he definitely could be good in redraft too this year.
Absolutely. All of a sudden, like some daydreaming song came across my phones, and I was locked out. I don't know. I must have hit something on accident here. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. All of a sudden, you just went silent. You were talking, but you went silent. I've been having a few technical issues myself. So
yeah, we're both sick. Our things aren't working today. It's we'll get through this. We're halfway through
We're fighting through. We're fighting through, John. We're doing it for the people.
We are fighting through. We are the people's champion, the Minnesota Vikings here. We got a situation here where they had Sam Darnold, me and you, our boy, kind of got he's getting paid $10 million this year. They kind of had him penciled in as a starter out, already. Unfortunately, they had JJ McCarthy picked. He was pumping up a lot of. He looked real good in camp, but he's out for the season. So it is the Sam Darnold show. So if you were in a redraft and people kind of ignored Sam Darnold, I think he's going to have a really good year this year. I'm not saying quarterback one, but a really good quarterback two. So Aaron Jones can catch the ball out of the backfield anywhere in the league. I like Aaron Jones a lot. He's a fantasy stud. Ty Chandler, in case of an injury, they only have two running backs on this team, but I'm still just sticking with Aaron Jones. That's a fantasy stud right there. Tight end Johnny Munt right now until our boy comes in, until TJ Hockenson comes back. So Johnny Munt is a nice. If he was not drafted the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, he's an easy plug and play at tight end. But they do got Justin Jefferson, Jalen Naylor, Jordan Addison. In a redraft, in a 12-team redraft, how many of these guys in this offense are you taking? Are you even bothered taking Johnny Munt in the first half?
No, I'm not taking Johnny Munt. What I'm doing is I'm taking TJ Hockenson and I'm stashing him on my IR. Yes. I'm going to take him. I'm going to put him on my IR. And when he comes back halfway through the year and starts getting together, when I need him in the second half of the season, I'll use him then. Jefferson's an obvious. Everyone should have him, want him, trade for him. Jordan Addison's the interesting one. He got hurt, ankle injury. No one's quite sure what his status is, if he's going to play early, how much. I got him late. Excuse me again. I'm sorry. I apologize. I got him late in a bunch of redrafts this last weekend because people just weren't sure about him. And now with Darnold at QB, a lot of people are really not sure. So he was a steal for me. If someone drafted him and he doesn't play or play sparingly these first couple weeks, watch for him to get dropped by people. I can see him being one of those guys. Someone in your league is like, oh, he's not going to do anything all year. Immediately drops him. Go and pick Jordan Addison up. We talk about. I don't think we probably talk about Darnold more than any two people in podcasting history, but I think Sam Darnold
could definitely be the man here. So I'm all about the Sam Darnold train. I'm not sure why he's getting where he's getting.